Millions of years ago, the forest thundered with the footsteps of giant dinosaurs. They were unstoppable and dangerous, at least to the plants. These were the herbivores. Today, dinosaur hunters are using new methods and sheer ingenuity to uncover the bizarre and clever ways plant-eating dinosaurs fended off attackers and devoured vegetation. Experts are revealing how some grew to be the largest animals that ever walked on Earth, and how others relied on magnificent and deadly armor as they struggled to protect themselves. As scientists probe deeper, they're finding out why these seemingly harmless plant eaters were the most plentiful and diverse of all the dinosaurs. Big or small, they ruled the land of the giants. Meet Nancy, the world's largest touring dinosaur. She arches 3 stories into the air, and soon she'll stretch longer than an 18-wheeler. Then she'll be center stage at DinoFest International, a traveling dinosaur exhibition. But first, a road crew must finish unpacking her 250 bones. More than half are real, discovered in Mongolia by a Chinese expedition. The rest are life-size casts. From her frame, scientists can infer much about how she lived, the adaptations and defenses that made her a success. Her great size was her best weapon and most useful attribute. 8-foot ribs once walled in a stomach so big that massive amounts of food might spend days inside, being converted to energy. Long legs as thick as tree trunks could carry her crushing weight for miles with minimal exertion. Her huge feet were twice the size of an elephant's. As they pounded the ground, they left a trail of craters revealing clues to the way she moved and where she went. Nancy's one of a group of the largest dinosaurs called Sauropods. Their remains are found in Jurassic and early Cretaceous sediments, about 200 to 100 million years old. That's when they were the dominant plant-eating dinosaurs. Sauropods had a variety of features that fell between 2 extremes. On one hand was Diplodocus. It had a long tail, relatively short front legs, and slender pencil-like teeth. On the other was Brachiosaurus. Its front legs were taller, tail shorter, neck more upright, and it had broad spatula-like teeth. Nancy was more like a Diplodocus. Found in the Middle Cretaceous, she was the last of her kind. None were mental giants. Perched atop the long neck was a small skull, which encased a brain estimated at about 1/4 the size of a cow's. At the other end was a huge tail that could send attackers flying with a mere flick. What were these giant dinosaurs really like? How could an animal get so big? It's a puzzle that challenges scientists. While some rely on cutting-edge technology, others seek answers from surprisingly simple experiments. At Indiana-Purdue University, Paleontologist Jim Farlow uses a method to estimate just how much sauropods weighed. He starts with a model of the dinosaur. Its precise proportions are based on fossil evidence and scaled down. He submerges it in a container of water and measures how much is displaced. That gives him the model's value. Next, knowing the model's scale, he can figure out the volume of the actual dinosaur and convert it to weight. Farlow's calculations show that a large sauropod might have weighed nearly 60 tons.
The really biggest sauropods, the ones that would have been at the upper end of the size range, you may be talking about animals that would have weighed 10, maybe even 20 times as much as a large elephant. And that's just something that your mind finds hard to comprehend.
As often happens in science, solving one puzzle leads to another.
So the obvious question is, why were they able to get so big when very few land mammals have been able to do the same thing? Well, truth in advertising here, I don't know if you want the absolute truth, but I can offer some educated guesses.
Farlow and other scientists believe the sauropods era had become greener than the one before it. Evidence shows that carbon dioxide levels rose. Since plants use carbon dioxide as food, plant life flourished. With more food to eat, sauropods could grow to enormous sizes. But Farlow thinks these plants were low-grade and nutrient-poor. How then did sauropods grow and stay huge on such inferior food? To learn more about large plant-eating animals, Farlow is visiting Jed Friel's farm in Auburn, Indiana.
Jason's up there. You want to ride along?
Yeah, sure.
He'll get the gates for us.
Jed raises herds of today's most famous plant eaters, cows.
How much of that would one cow need in a day?
Well, you know, it takes about a half a bale a day per cow, is what we kind of figure in the wintertime. We like to see them have about 25 pounds of hay per cow to get them through the winter every day.
Digesting hay is a complicated matter. Once it's swallowed, it's softened in one of the cow's 4 stomachs. Microorganisms then break it down even more, extracting vitamins. Then it's regurgitated and chewed again, known as chewing the cud. Sauropods also had help digesting. Some scientists believe they swallowed stones called gastroliths, like modern birds do. The gastroliths may have rolled around inside their stomachs or gizzards, grinding the vegetation into small digestible bits. Also, according to Farlow, it takes a long time for food to pass through a huge animal's enormous digestive tract, giving microorganisms more time to extract nutrients. So sauropods could digest even the poorest quality plant material.
I like to say the equivalent of shredded newspaper. And I suspect that sauropods could get by on that stuff. They were among the best herbivores that have ever lived, I suspect, in their ability to survive on really crummy food.
Sauropods were built to eat. They took full advantage of whatever plant life grew around them. But how much food did one of these giants eat? Well, if Jed was feeding sauropods instead of cows, he'd probably need a lot more land.
Jed was telling me that a 1,000-pound cow, if you were going to pasture it, about 10 acres, which is about the size of the field that we've got around us here. If we want to compare that with what a sauropod is doing, a 50-ton sauropod that's warm-blooded, you're probably looking at something like 270 acres, which is basically a little bit farther than as far as you can see from this hill we're on.
A single sauropod could consume almost 700 pounds of vegetation in a day. That's if it were warm-blooded. But not all scientists are convinced dinosaurs were warm-blooded. In fact, Farlow thinks warm-blooded sauropods would have devastated plant life so fast, nothing would have been left for them to survive on. So they must have been cold-blooded. Warm-blooded animals like cows need to keep their internal temperature high by eating lots of food. Cold-blooded animals like lizards rely on the sun for warmth and eat less. If cold-blooded, a sauropod would still need to eat almost 250 pounds of plants every day. Whether warm-blooded or cold, sauropods must have had voracious appetites. They ambled through forests, devouring the scenery. With each thunderous step, they left a trail of clues hinting at their behavior. Tracks that are now being uncovered millions of years later by a new breed of dinosaur expert. Flying high in the sky, dinosaur expert Christian Mayer has spotted traces of huge dinosaurs in a Swiss mountain range known as the Jura, the place where the Jurassic period of the Age of Dinosaurs got its name. He's discovered dinosaur trackways here, covering an area 3 times the size of New York City. It's called a mega track site. Mayer knows that bones can tell a lot about anatomy, but only tracks can reveal clues about the movements of dinosaurs. Mayer also knows that it takes years of experience to interpret tracks. So he's asked track expert Martin Lockley from the University of Colorado at Denver to help. The first order of business for Lockley, Mayer, and assistant Dorothy Hippler is to map the track site using aerial photographs.
And the same with these over here, for example.
They examine the photos to establish the pattern and direction of each trackway, which holds clues to the dinosaur's behavior. But sometimes, irregularities in the rock can masquerade as dinosaur tracks.
Some of these look like tracks, but they're not. So for every good track, there's probably at least one bad one. So there are probably 4 or 5.
So far, Mayer has discovered nearly 15 separate trackways scattered throughout the mega track site. But how did they get here? In the heart of the Jura Mountains. The answer lies in a layer of rock that formed 150 million years ago in the Jurassic period. Back then, the geography here was very different. The continents were just beginning to move apart from the single landmass they had once formed, known as Pangaea. The Jura Mountains were a level shoreline of a now vanished ocean, the Tethys Sea. After dinosaurs trampled a soggy shoreline, sun and wind dried their tracks, which hardened like concrete. The next rainstorm or flood deposited a layer of sediment over the tracks, preserving them. Then, 15 million years ago, as the land masses continued to shift and collide, the shoreline was pushed upward, forming mountains. Sediment covering the tracks eventually eroded, revealing the fossilized prints. Today, Christian Mayer and his team of trackers are piecing them back together step by step.
Oh, like the slab is still dry, that's okay.
Among his most recent discoveries are trackways at a quarry near the town of Moutier.
Yeah. I wanted to set the rope up there where the casting people come. But take the oldest one. Andy, if you have the
After
bag.
the aerial photographs, the team must examine the tracks up close. So they've pounded rappelling bolts into the rock to pull themselves up. Studying tracks made by animals millions of years ago is dangerous. To Martin Lockley, the risks are worth taking. He's after the thrill of the hunt.
It really is like being a tracker of modern animals. It's like following a creature that passed by yesterday sometimes. You feel it's much more recent, you know, time doesn't mean anything. You're following a Jurassic animal one day, you're following a recent animal the next day.
Clinging to the rock, Martin and Dorothy give each massive footprint individual attention. To the trackers, the footprints are snapshots of living, breathing creatures.
And we're used to thinking of dinosaurs as skeletons, but these are the evidence of the living animal in motion. People have referred to them as motion pictures of dinosaurs, so they're a very dynamic type of evidence. We can see with the sauropod track, for instance, it had a big fleshy foot like an elephant. So the first thing we learn is the shape of the feet, not the shape of the bones in the foot skeleton that we see in the museum, but the actual shape of the feet.
The prints are scrutinized to identify the kind of dinosaur that made them. These impressions lack fine detail, but their round shape and large size, up to 3 feet across for the hind prints, show that they were made by the burly footpads of sauropod dinosaurs. Next, stride length is measured to figure out how fast the dinosaur was moving. The prints of a slow-moving animal are fairly close together. As it accelerates, its stride lengthens. The distance between the prints and average leg lengths known from skeletons are used to calculate speed. Mayer has determined that these massive creatures were sauntering at about 5 miles per hour, the average walking speed of an elephant. Track sites like these have also changed the way we think about sauropods. When their bones first appeared in the 19th century, scientists speculated that the creatures they belonged to lived in swamps. Water must have provided the buoyancy necessary to carry such enormous weight. And because it was thought that dinosaurs were related to reptiles, some believed they crawled low to the ground, dragging their tails like crocodiles or lizards. But trackways have told a different story. The lack of tail drag marks shows that the animals walked with their tails in the air. The narrow width between each footprint shows they walk with their legs directly beneath their bodies, like modern elephants, a stance that could support their tremendous weight without the help of water. Until now, mapping dinosaur tracks has been a low-tech operation. Today, Christian Mayer is testing a new method that uses lasers and computers. The device fires a beam of light to a small reflector placed in a footprint. By measuring how long it takes for the beam to return, the computer calculates the distance to the footprint.
It's very simple. I can do it like this. I can just put 1 point on this area, and he's calculating immediately the area, the surface, and surface will appear here.
I'm looking forward to the results. I think this will be
I
a
will be
great
also.
thing.
The depth of each print is also recorded. From the data, the computer will generate a 3D contour map of the site.
Yes, I can measure whole step.
Because prints of the same depth were made at the same time, Mayer will be able to single out an individual trackway from multiple crossings with the click of a mouse. The new equipment promises to speed up the process of mapping trackways. But for now, the dinosaur trackers rely on slower, time-proven methods. After photographing and measuring the track site, a better picture of what the giant dinosaurs were doing at the ancient shoreline is emerging. The surface of the wall appears to be trampled over many times. It appears that hundreds of sauropods returned here time and again, perhaps to cool themselves. Or maybe lush vegetation along the banks provided a favorite feeding place. As dinosaur trackers follow in the footsteps of giants, active roaming dinosaurs seem to come to life. Elsewhere, a new discovery is fueling a long-simmering debate about how some of the smaller dinosaurs got around. These are the Badlands of North Dakota. 80 million years ago, this region of North America was crisscrossed by rivers and streams, a lush lowland leading to the edge of an inland sea. Throughout this land roamed the most exotic of plant-eating dinosaurs, triceratops. They lived from about 100 to 65 million years ago, at the end of the final period of the dinosaurs, the Cretaceous. Like most other dinosaurs, they were smaller than the sauropods, but they were large animals in their own right. Some grew as big as a bus. Triceratops was a member of a family of dinosaurs called ceratopsians, creatures armed with a variety of sharp horns and large fan-like shields. But beneath all that remarkable armor is a heated debate that has simmered since these creatures were first discovered. How did they stand? It began in 1896, when the first known illustration of a ceratopsian skeleton appeared on a poster of specimens from Yale's Peabody Museum. The creature was shown with its front legs straight underneath, in an upright stance, like a rhinoceros. But it was a guess. Fossils from several discoveries were combined because a complete skeleton had not yet been found. In the same year, a Triceratops skeleton was mounted by the Smithsonian Museum. Also a composite, it was shown in a sprawling stance, front legs bent crocodile style. To many, an upright stance implies an agile, warm-blooded dinosaur that could charge attackers. A sprawling stance means an animal that's slower, more reptilian, and possibly cold-blooded. With no way to resolve the issue, ceratopsians have been depicted both ways for years. Now a remarkable discovery may end the dispute. In the summer of 1994, William Gartzka, a biologist from the University of Alabama, and paleontologist David Burnham found a fascinating Triceratops in the Badlands of North Dakota. Gartzka had spent weeks scouring the land for dinosaur remains. Then one day, as he was coming over a hilltop, he noticed what looked like a rib bone sticking out of the ground. He contacted Burnham. They put together a crew and set up a dig site. As more and more bones were exposed, Gartzka and Burnham realized they had stumbled upon the most complete Triceratops skeleton ever found. Over millions of years, dinosaur skeletons tend to get broken up and the bones scattered over a wide area. But this skeleton was articulated. Most of the bones were still connected. They named their find Raymond. As Raymond emerged, Gartzka and Burnham could see for the first time the natural position of the front legs. They were straight underneath his body. Raymond and all his ceratopsian kin must have had an upright stance. Had the debate finally been settled? It looked that way, But Ralph Johnson of the Milwaukee Public Museum has some doubts.
Preservation is on these bones.
Before Raymond was found, he made a discovery of his own.
Attach the foot now, so that's got to be rotated around.
On an expedition in 1981, his team found a complete shoulder and front leg of a Torosaurus, another ceratopsian.
Good. Okay. Hang on.
Back in the museum, he devised an ingenious way to test how the bones fit together. He made plastic casts of them, which he connected with metal joints. To simulate muscles, he used elastic straps, affixing them where the bones showed evidence of the actual muscle attachments. Then he hung the 7-foot model from scaffolding and tried walking the leg in both sprawling and upright positions. If the position worked, the bones would stay in their sockets. If not, the bones would slip out. The result surprised him.
In this kind of traditional reptile sprawl with the front leg, everything works. The joints all line up the way they should. The muscles act on the bones the way they should. It works. You can actually get this thing to walk forward, which is what you want it to do. Now, if we go into the other idea, straight underneath the body.
But when Johnson tried to walk the leg underneath the body, the bone could only move sideways,
It's actually going sideways,
not back and forth.
into the animal's stomach. There's a way to get around that, though.
When he twisted the bone around to make it move back and forth, he found another problem.
Well, now you've got the elbow going in the right direction toward the head of the animal. But now our dinosaur looks a little bit like Popeye with the foot pointing out to the side. So this thing is going to be walking like this. Actually, it won't be walking at all. There's no way biomechanically to get this animal to move forward by putting these legs directly underneath the body.
According to Johnson's experiment, the case was closed. Ceratopsians must have sprawled like crocodiles. But where does that leave Raymond, Gartzke and Burnham's prized discovery?
Raymond's forelimb and hind limb are clearly in an upright position. This is not what you'd expect from a lizard-like posture.
He's standing on his tippy toes, and so that enables him to move at greater speeds, kind of poised like a runner.
In Johnson's version, the shoulder blades are pulled back, enabling the legs to sprawl. But when Gartzke and Burnham uncovered Raymond, they found his shoulder blades much farther forward, allowing his legs to be pushed under the body, an upright stance. Johnson's impressed, but not ready to give in yet. Raymond's bones await further study. Once scientists have had a chance to thoroughly examine them, then the question may be settled. Johnson's already confident about the results.
And I'm glad about Raymond because it's a complete leg. It even has the bones in the hand. We know it's from one individual. And now what they can do is actually try to put those legs together, to put those bones together. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to find that once they try to articulate those bones, get the balls and sockets to line up, that they're not going to be able to get them underneath the body.
And you can see here
With a stance that hints at his behavior, Raymond clutches the secret to how his kind lived. Meanwhile, innovative use of medical technology is revealing how a dinosaur 80 million years older may have died. Stegosaurs were innocent-looking dinosaurs that feasted on Jurassic vegetation about 145 million years ago. But should the need arise, these generally docile creatures had the equipment to defend themselves against predatory dinosaurs. Plates along its back intimidated enemies by making the stegosaur appear larger than it really was, and lethal spikes at the end of a powerful tail could fend off the toughest opponents. But even though the spikes were as lethal as daggers, it seems they could also be a point of vulnerability. July 1992. At a remote location in Colorado, an unusual stegosaur skeleton was uncovered. Trapped at the bottom of a deep gully lay one of the most complete specimens ever found. With most of its bones still embedded in rock, it was prepared for transport out of the canyon.
It'd be better to leave,
Earlier in the excavation, paleontologist Ken Carpenter and his team discovered that the otherwise well-preserved skeleton had a deformed tail spike. It piqued their curiosity. But before they could study it, they'd have to get the stegosaur to the lab. As the final layer of rock was removed, the team faced a problem. The encased skeleton was too heavy to lift. Determined to get it out, they called in reinforcements. A U.S. Army helicopter was sent in to airlift the remains out of the ravine. They could then be taken to the Denver Natural History Museum, where Carpenter could give them a thorough examination. The helicopters are designed to raise 20th century battle tanks. Lifting the remains of a 145 million year old stegosaur wasn't much different. Back in the museum's lab, technicians painstakingly removed the bones from rock. Finally, Carpenter was ready to perform the autopsy. He began by focusing on the disfigured tail spike.
I didn't quite know what to make of it. I thought maybe it was due to crushing from the weight of the rock that was encasing it. I mean, certainly if we look at this more normal spike, we can see that there's quite a bit of difference in the shape.
As Carpenter studied the bony spike, he noticed that it showed signs of healing and regrowth, indicating that it wasn't damaged after death. He also detected small holes on the surface of the bone, suggesting disease. One possibility was a bacterial infection called osteomyelitis. If a bone has been broken and is left untreated, bacteria can invade its marrow, the blood-producing tissue held within a honeycombed structure at the center. Within days, fluid builds up, and the bone develops small holes to relieve the pressure. Eventually, the bone's inner structure is destroyed. The infection can spread throughout the body and cause death. Could this have been the fate of Carpenter's stegosaur? To find out, he would have to look inside the spike. But there was a problem. Doing this would require breaking open the rare fossil, something he wasn't willing to do. The answer lay inside Kaiser Hospital in Denver. Lori McWhinney, one of his lab volunteers, worked there. She suggested using the hospital's CAT scan. Medical technology developed to harmlessly cut through human tissue and bone could expose the spike's interior without destroying it.
I want to see if we can see some detail in that area.
Okay.
First, they scanned a normal spike, the kind found on healthy stegosaurs. Next, the deformed spike. Then the scans were compared.
This represents a normal tail spike. You can see the dense outer bone represented here. The bone marrow is in the center. This is a pathologic spike, and you can see the dense outer bone, but the bone marrow is no longer where it should be.
In the infected spike, the honeycomb structure of the inner bone is gone, a clear indication that it was not crushed by rock, but destroyed by bacteria before the creature died. Now Carpenter can be quite certain the stegosaur suffered from osteomyelitis, possibly caused by a broken tail spike. But how did the dinosaur break its spike in the first place? It may have been a casualty of war. The weapons and armor of stegosaurs are clear to see, but dinosaur expert Bob Bacher has drawn some conclusions about the defenses of sauropod dinosaurs other than size that aren't quite so obvious. He claims to have uncovered the secret of how the sauropod he calls Brontosaurus protected itself.
I'm standing in the unprotected underbelly of Brontosaurus. Right here, there's no bone, there's no cartilage, and above me would be this huge vat of sloshing digestive fluids. We had thought that if you bit Brontosaurus here, you could kill it. We thought that if Brontosaurus sat down hard on a rock back here, could injure its abdomen, but we were wrong. We have just found the first perfect set of Brontosaurus belly armor, rods of bone, up to 3 feet long, which were embedded in the belly muscle, right up here. And these rods of bone have big knobs on them, proving there were strong ligaments in the belly muscle. This would give Brontosaurus the strongest abdomen of any animal that has ever lived. If you were a meat eater and tried to bite here, you'd break your tooth. If you're a meat eater and jabbed a claw in here, it would pull out. And if you're a Brontosaurus, these belly bones and muscles would keep your great sloshing gut stiff and firm if you wanted to move fast left or right, or if you wanted to stand straight up. You see, with a gut protected and stiffened like this, a Brontosaurus could go from all fours to straight up in a few seconds.
But a Brontosaurus was huge. So strong belly or not, lifting its body off the ground required a few fancy tricks with leverage.
Brontosaurus has a strange set of balancing organs. Now, the neck was hollow. All the bones were hollow. And here would be the lungs full of air. But you get back here, and it's all fluid-filled gut. And then the mother of all rumps, these gigantic hip bones and thigh bones surrounded by muscle.
With its light front end and heavy rear, a Brontosaurus was like a seesaw with the weight on one end. Tilting its front end up was no problem.
The animal's designed to go up, and go up quick. Why would you want to tilt up? Well, this is a plant eater. It lived in an environment where the summers were dry, nothing to eat at ground level, but there'd still be leaves, green leaves, on trees, tall trees. By tilting up quickly, you can access foliage that no other plant eater could get.
With its massive legs and long neck, Brontosaurus could reach perhaps 40 feet high. But that flexibility came with a price.
This is the front end of Brontosaurus, and there are two problems here. They're related. Number one, the body is designed to tilt up. That's true. How are you going to get blood from the heart way up to the head? Seems impossible. Problem number two, this animal has a tiny brain, a smaller brain than its ancestors. Brontosaurus evolution was dumbing down. Are the two problems related? Yeah. See, Brontosaurus would survive better if it could rear up and get those plants. The only way to get those plants would be to remove the need for blood to be pumped up to the head. How are you going to do that? Eliminate the brain. In this case, reducing the brain was adaptive. Little brains don't need a constant flow of blood. This is a high-tech, successful, 40,000-pound moron.
Perhaps, but not everyone agrees.
There's an alternative theory. It goes like this. Brontosaurus had a heart so big it could pump blood up at the velocity of a fire hose. It could get that blood way up to the head, even when the head was held really high. But what would happen when the Brontosaurus lowered its head? The rush of blood would blow the skull off the rest of the skeleton.
We may never know for sure how much heart a Brontosaurus had, but we do know that its kind were huge. And if size was its best defense, then perhaps the safest sauropod would be the most immense, an honor now bestowed on a dinosaur uncovered in the rugged badlands of Argentina. Below the equator, in a region of Argentina known as Patagonia, lies the small town of Plaza Juncal. Its tiny museum is home to the remains of what could possibly be the largest dinosaur that ever lived. With a patriotic touch, it's been named Argentinosaurus. For the past 8 years, paleontologist Rodolfo Correa and his team have been assembling the bones of this previously unknown sauropod from the Cretaceous period. But even with the creature still in bits, Correa believes the massive bones leave no doubt about its size.
The backbones of Argentinosaurus were at least 50% longer than any other vertebrate from any other known sauropod around the world.
The bones of Argentinosaurus were first spotted on a remote ranch outside Plaza Juncal in 1988. Word got back to Jose Bonaparte, head paleontologist at the Argentine Museum of Natural History in Buenos Aires. He sent Correa, then a student, on a 1,000-mile journey to inspect the discovery. It didn't take long for Correa to appreciate the bone's importance. Determined to get this giant creature out of the ground, he moved his family to Plaza Juncal, then arranged a job at the little museum, assembled a crew, and started digging. After many months of hard labor, he and his crew freed enough bones to begin taking them back to the museum. Once there, the careful cleaning of the bones progressed, and Correa began to think about the enormous importance of his enormous dinosaur. Argentinosaurus, it seemed, had become the latest in the series of discoveries of the most gigantic dinosaurs. It started a century ago, when dinosaurs were first being unearthed in the American West. A rivalry emerged between two great paleontologists, Philadelphia's Edward Drinker Cope and Yale University's Othniel Charles Marsh. It quickly became one of the most vicious battles in modern science. Hostilities intensified in 1877, when a huge bone bed was discovered near Como Bluff, Wyoming. According to legend, teams sent out by Marsh and Cope lied and cheated, even destroyed fossils to prevent their rivals from collecting them. For 12 years, these destructive wars raged. In the end, Marsh's collectors had unearthed some of the biggest bones ever found. Among them was a nearly complete skeleton Marsh later called Brontosaurus. At an estimated 75 feet in length and 15 feet tall, it stood about as high as a one-story building and spanned the length of about 5 mid-sized cars. A new giant appeared in 1910, when the Berlin Museum mounted one of the biggest dinosaur excavations of all time in East Africa. 500 men labored to dig out 250 tons of dinosaur bones. Their greatest prize was Brachiosaurus. With a height of 40 feet and a length of 85 feet, it remains the biggest dinosaur ever assembled in a museum. It was taller than a 3-story building and as long as 6 cars. 70 years would pass before a bigger dinosaur was discovered. In 1979, in Colorado, a dinosaur was found that was so big it was called Ultrasaurus. It stood 9 feet at its shoulders, possibly stretching more than 100 feet in length. It's likely to have towered 4 stories high and spanned as long as 7 cars. 6 years later, from a rocky outcrop in New Mexico, came the longest dinosaur ever found, the Earthshaker, Seismosaurus. It had a horizontal posture, but Seismosaurus still may have reached a height of a 3-story building. With its long whip-like tail, it's estimated to have spanned 150 feet, nearly the length of 9 cars. And what about Argentinosaurus? How does it compare? It could have been nearly 120 feet in length and 60 feet in height, 5 stories high and nearly 8 cars long. In overall size, Correa believes Argentinosaurus to be the biggest dinosaur ever found.
The bones of Argentinosaurus are representing an animal 100 tons in weight, which is equivalent to 20 African elephants all together at the same time and at the same body.
Today, Korea's team has uncovered all the bones they're likely to find. Now Korea faces a new challenge, finding a building large enough to house them. How long will Argentinosaurus hold its record? No one knows for sure, but a new challenger is already gearing up to take the field. Dinosaur hunting used to mean digging vast amounts of earth to find fossils. Geophysicist Alan Witten from the University of Oklahoma hopes to change that. He's merged firearms and computer technology with geophysical knowledge and come up with a method to locate dinosaur bones deep underground. Witten has come to help a colleague find the remains of a giant sauropod from the early Cretaceous, about 110 million years ago. It might be a future record breaker, but they need to find more of it to be sure.
By the time we get out there,
here in southeastern Oklahoma, paleontologist Richard Cifelli and his team have already dug out 3 gigantic neck bones.
Our guess is that this bone here is about the 7th bone down in the neck, sort of towards the middle of the neck series. And it's a good deal larger than Brachiosaurus. I mean, this is a lot bigger than Brachiosaurus, which is a huge, huge animal. So this could rival the very biggest of described dinosaurs. So how y'all making out down here?
But just when Cifelli thought he might be on his way to discovering the biggest dinosaur ever, his luck ran out.
We found this neck, and then it just abruptly came to an end. And so we're missing the vast majority of this huge, huge animal. Where is it? You can't just dig forever. It's just not practical.
It was time to call in Alan Witten and his gear. First, the overlying soil must be scraped away and the ground flattened. Then Witten can start looking for more bones. He uses a huge 8-gauge shotgun mounted on wheels. When fired, it sends sound waves into the earth. The vibrations are detected by an assortment of buried microphones. Sound waves travel more quickly through the dense bone than the sandy soil, so they arrive at the microphones first. A computer analyzes the patterns of waves, then reveals the location of the underground objects. With his device, Witten might just be able to tell Cifelli where to dig next.
What I'm planning is to run the gun down the tape measure in this direction, shooting it every 2 feet, and what we'll get is a vertical slice, an image of a vertical slice right below this tape measure. Is that all right?
With the array of microphones in place and signaling to the computer, Witten begins. His assistant stays with the computer to confirm transmission.
Now, what do we have?
Even with help from technology, it's hard locating dinosaur bones deep underground. But Witten won't give up so easily. He's brought along other devices. One of the most promising is ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. It's been used for years in archaeology, but now it's being adapted to paleontology. Instead of sound waves, GPR beams radio waves into the earth. Radio waves respond to the chemical composition of an object instead of density, and the results are easier to read. If the waves hit an object underground with the chemical composition of bone, they'll bounce back to the surface, showing up as an isolated blip on the computer screen. Despite technological advances, sometimes bones are still found by sheer luck. Cifelli found a few more while bulldozing the site.
We just stopped just in the nick of time with a bulldozer. That came down to like about this level, right where we had those bags. We've gone another 3 or 4 inches, this would have been hamburger.
If Witten's work proves successful, it will prevent close calls like this and revolutionized dinosaur hunting. But the use of geophysics in dinosaur exploration is in its early stages, and this time the giant's bones have proven elusive, so the challenge will have to wait. With further refinements, Whitten is confident that his technology will be a wave of the future that will help us see deep into the past. The subtle designs of plant-eating dinosaurs don't yield clues easily. But today's technology has aided in piecing together the adaptations and behaviors that allow them to flourish in a world of vicious predators. In the end, it's the energy and imagination of men and women that have helped us to better understand these unique dinosaurs and recreated a world that was lost millions of years before the first human walked the earth. Today, the bones of perhaps only 1% of all the dinosaur species that live have been uncovered. Imagine what's still waiting to be found.